All right, I feel like I needed to make a video about this because I've just been kind of losing my mind talking to people about it. But so in the past few years, there's been a pretty big surge of people wanting to do speedruns where they're allowed to pause the timer and take breaks during the run. Now, this isn't a new concept at all. It's been around in speedrunning for as long as I've been speedrunning, which is almost 2 decades now. And so it's called a TA run as opposed to an RTA run. So when you're timing from the start of when you start the speedrun to the end of when you complete the speedrun, that is an RTA run, a real time attack, because you're timing in real time. And when you are allowed to pause the timer and take breaks, and you're just timing the time that you're actually playing the game, that's called a TA run, a time attack, right? They're just fundamentally different things, and they've both existed and, you know, kind of coexisted for a long time. It's just people have kind of preferred doing RTA runs, right, for a long time. But recently, TA runs have started to, you know, get a bit of a surge, and I think it kind of started with Breath of the Wild 100%. I think has really kicked off this whole thing. But what I'm here to tell you, basically, is that because they're fundamentally different and taking breaks is an objective advantage, like you can't disagree with that, it is. In any pursuit where you're trying to complete a task as fast as possible, being able to take breaks is an objective advantage, right? The way to present that on the leaderboards, right? And so this is just some basic leaderboard. I think I've got Mario Tennis Power Tour up here. It's just a normal leaderboard. So the way to do that is you create a variable here that just has RTA and TA, right? So the way this leaderboard works is, you know, you've got the categories, so it's, you know, singles, doubles, 100%, and then you've got these variables. So, you know, you've got the difficulty, easy, normal, technical, and, you know, the region, so, you know, what language the game's going to play in and whatever. All you need is another one here if you've got a, you know, longer category. So let's say, I think 100% is a decent length, right? You just have one here that's RTA and TA. So people can compete in RTA runs and they can compete in TA runs. And people can just do whatever they actually want, compete against whatever they want, and the information is presented in a really digestible way that it's like, oh, I can do this in real time or not. I can do either, and that's fine. And the problem is when you have a look at any of these boards, and so I'll bring up Breath of the Wild, and I'm kind of singling out Breath of the Wild because I think it was the one that kind of started it just because, you know, it's a really popular game and had a really long category. But if you go to those boards and it's like basically anything since then is the same, there's no variable for RTA or TA. The time is just presented as whatever the time is. But effectively these are TA boards because if you dig deeper and you go to show rules and then you bring up the category rules, you'll find sleep break rules, right? So you're just allowed to take breaks. And so these are TA runs. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with people doing TA runs. And especially for these longer categories, you know, I completely understand that people need to do that in multiple sittings. Not everybody has 15 hours or, you know, 20 hours or 10 hours or whatever it is. Some people don't have that time. Some people need to take breaks to be able to do that. All good. Do a TA run, but don't delete RTA runs because that's effectively what this is doing. Because it's like, oh yeah, you could just not take breaks, but it's, as I'm saying, it's an objective disadvantage, you know? Much like, you know, if you were doing the 10K run and people were just allowed to take breaks, right? Well, okay. And pause their timer, I should say, because like in an RTA run, you're allowed to take breaks. It's just the time is going to keep going, right? But if everybody was just allowed to take breaks and there was nowhere for you to compete with people who are doing it in one sitting, then you're effectively demolishing the competition where people just do it in one sitting because taking breaks is an advantage, right? But yeah, so all you need is that variable. And I actually think it's better for people from kind of like a health perspective to immediately see, oh, okay, I don't have to do this in real time. Because if you see this, right, pretty much I would suggest the majority of people are just going to see the time and think, oh, they do this in 15 hours. Wow, I can't play a game for 15 hours, so now I'm just not interested. Because not as many people are going to click on show rules and then category rules to see this kind of thing. And this is now creeping into a lot of games that aren't, 10 hours plus long. So I found out yesterday, and this actually happened like earlier on in the year, shows how kind of like off the pulse I am, that even like Gen 7 Pokemon, this is like Sun and Moon, time under 5 hours. If you go to show rules, runners can take breaks, right? These are TA boards. And it's like, there's no reason to not have them separated and let people compete how they want, do what they want, and have the information presented in a better way. And like, even if you're saying, oh, I think it's unhealthy for people to do whatever, it's like, well, you don't get to decide how people run their lives. Like, that's ridiculous for you to just say, oh, I think this is unhealthy, so you shouldn't do that. I mean, not only can that be applied to so many topics, and I would hope most people can agree that's bullshit. You shouldn't get to decide how people, live their lives and what's healthy for them. That's their choice. But it's also, we're going to start rejecting, really optimized 10-minute speedruns because, oh, that person grinded for 10 hours a day. That was really unhealthy for them to do that. So we should just not have a place for that. Like, that's ridiculous. Because, like, what we're looking at right here is saying in the speedrunning community, we should get rid of, people wanting to beat the game in real time as fast as they can. That's ridiculous. I can't understand that. And not only that, right? I'm somebody who's done quite a few like longer speed runs, like my Pokemon Stadium runs, kind of around the 20-hour mark. The person who's the best judge of what's healthy for you is you, right? If I'm on one of those runs and I'm like, 9 hours in, even if I'm ahead, if I don't feel well, I stop because I have that agency. I have that choice, Like if I'm doing an RTA run and I'm not actually feeling good and I'm like, no, I'm not going to push myself to do this because that's not a healthy thing to do. Yeah, I'll just not do it. No worries. There's no issue with that, And, if you had TA boards, I might turn that into a TA run or whatever, But just getting rid of RTA just makes no sense. And there's just genuinely no reason they should be combined. They should be separate. They just are different things, like fundamentally. And I think, like, not only is there no compromise, I also think it's better in like every single way. And I cannot fathom how many people have been like calling me ableist. Basically, people being like, hey, I would like to do this run with breaks. I would like there to be a TA board. Like, I would like to do this run with breaks. And it's like, okay, the solution to that is we'll create a board where you can, do TA runs. Because basically they're saying, I want to do TA runs. And it's like, okay, well, we'll create a board where you can do TA runs. And the response to that has been, that's ableist. How dare you? Like, what? Like, it's alienating to people to have a board to do TA runs? If they want to do TA runs, that's not alienating. That's the exact opposite of alienating. It's accommodating to people who want to do that. Like, this is alienating to people who want to do RTA runs because effectively there is no way to do that in a competitive sense. And it's ridiculous. And like some of the other arguments I've been reading is stuff like, oh, if you have RTA and TA though, people will just like shame the TA runners because it won't be seen as legitimate. And I'm like, well, okay, so what you're saying is you think RTA is more legitimate, but we should abolish RTA. Like, what? Like, first of all, it's just like, if you just have them there, people just do what they want, they watch what they want. Because like, if people are saying, oh, I'm not interested in watching this TA run, I don't care about that TA run, basically they're just saying, I just want to watch an RTA run, and that's fine. Like, not only should you be able to do what you want, you should be able to watch what you want, It's like, oh, I appreciate an RTA run more than a TA run. That's fine. Some people might appreciate a TA run more than an RTA run because that's the type of, skill and play that they want to see. It's just a different type of thing, There's no issue with either of those things. But saying, oh, I want to do a TA run, and some people might think it's not as legitimate if people know it's a TA run, which is a different thing. Like, that's ridiculous. So we should abolish the thing that they actually want? How is that the solution? Like, no. Let people do what they want. Ugh. But so please, because like I feel like this has gotten out of hand at this point because so many like communities have their own, like, 4 people in Discord, and there's no people kind of being like, hey, this has actually existed for 2 decades, here's the solution. If you come across this, or if you're in a game where this has already happened, right? Because I think this is pretty obviously, like, objectively how to handle the situation. Please bring it up. Please be like, hey, this is actually how you handle it, and everybody wins. Please do that. Please, I beg of you. Because, like, end of the day, you wouldn't put segmented runs with these runs, right? We all understand that segmented runs, actually, some of you all might not even have heard about segmented runs. They used to be, like, for a lot of longer games, they used to be more popular than single segment runs. So segmented runs would be, you would do parts of the game, one at a time. You would do, 10 minutes of the game and then save and then quit and then try and optimize the next 10 minutes and do it in segments like that, right? And that's kind of a type of speedrun that has lost popularity over time. I would say mostly with the advent of streaming. People are preferred to do the single segment runs, do it in one playthrough. But, you wouldn't put segmented runs on these same boards because it's a different type of run. And exactly the same way, a TA run is a different type of run to an RTA run. And again, if you wanted to do segmented runs, do segmented runs as well, That's another option that you've got too. If you want to do TA runs, do TA runs. If you want to do RTA runs, do RTA runs. Just have a space for all of these places, for all of these types of runs. Simple.